Good day, my dear postgraduate students. I think we are meeting after quite a long break. That was intended for the present postgraduate students appearing for the examination and also a personal assignment of mine. Following which, I shall continue in my journey for the first and the second year postgraduates. I have chosen a series of technical topics, and the topic for the day is PAPNet. We shall think of the subheadings: introduction, definition, principle, procedure, application, advantages, disadvantages, and a take-home message. Always have such a battery of subheadings with you because they will take you to the answer. Coming to the introduction, the PAPNet as such is supposed to be a neural network that is based on artificial intelligence. There is a screening and a rescreening of the conventional smears. Care has been taken in this procedure to concentrate on the edges of the smears because they are likely to have been missed. Also, there is a review of cases which are reanalyzed by optimal microscopes. The negative smears are avoided because it is straightforward. But then this has been found to be useful in cases such as malignancy, human papillomavirus, HSIL, LSIL, and somewhat positive for ATPL. These were the subjects that were concentrated upon. Now this is a picture of a conventional reporting. All of us are quite familiar with it. Sometimes we might be having a pentahead or a decahead microscope, but otherwise this is still the best method on earth. There is a series of pathologists. It can be a junior resident, a postgraduate student, a senior resident, etc., who screen and then come to report with the senior pathologist, who might be a professor. Even otherwise, when there is going to be an element of doubt or a second opinion is needed, you find that there another senior professor looks at it. This is a conventional mode of reporting. Also, we should have it in mind, as my professor of pathology at JIPMER had once said, there is what is called as standardization or a review of the previous reports. So this will give us an idea as to where we stood. This is a conventional mode. Have this in mind. These are a series of good references, cause you people must be knowing, and this person, Sensi, in 2 references, I think it is worth attending to. I would like you people to kindly go to these references if time permits. Now, what you are seeing is in the neuromedical systems. The PAPNet is not confined to the pap smear of the cervix alone. You find in this there is a display of cancer cells from the esophagus, and they are stained with the pap stain to be found out to be an adenocarcinoma at a later date. This is the histopathology with the H&E stain, thanks to ResearchGate and one of the previous references that I have quoted. So this is incidentally what is happening. There will be some cells which are difficult or atypical or somewhat suspicious, which could not be definitely diagnosed. But then what happens is at a later date, again thanks to Professor Narasimhan, this is called as post-biopsy or post-histology wisdom. After having the histology, I go back to the cytology, I am able to. Whether I am able to or not, this is being constantly fed into the computer. So that at one day, you find that the computer is more accurate than us, not that it is more intelligent. Definition. It is a computerized imaging system using network emulating software to detect abnormal cells on conventionally prepared and stained pap smears. So you find that there is an imaging system and these are being constantly fed into the computer and it analyzes. You know the analytical ability of a computer. I need not go into it, nor am I an expert in it. And going back to the pap smear itself, what is the significance of it? You find that since 1940, there has been a drastic reduction in the death due to cervical carcinoma. One of the best screening methods. Not difficult to perform, not time consuming, low price, and unfortunately, there can be some amount of misreading or error. But this have been over amplified and this has caused some kind of a black mark in us with the clinicians. The wrong reports are being publicized too much. There will be thousands and thousands of accurate reports, whereas hardly a dozen wrong reports. But then we have to bear the brunt. Unrealistic expectation from litigation prone public. So these were the words of one of the great persons I shall be showing. What happens in the due course is there has been a process of automation and there is a screening that is done. And what happens is even in the screening method, there is a need for a pathologist to recheck it, but then the number of pathologists come down. So it endangers the pathologist ourselves. So this is what is happening. There is a conventional pap smear, there is a cytotechnologist, and then you find that there is a automatic pap system. There are the normal slides which are being fed into it. Again, they are being analyzed by the senior cytotechnologist, the cytopathologist, and finally a cytology report is being produced. So this is one. This is being stored in place. At the same time, you find that there can be a remote pap staining station from where you have the cytotechnologist referring it. It can go on to the digital image. PAPNET review station is over there. That is the computer itself. And finally, a cytology report is again being obtained. This is another one we should now have in mind. Now, what happens is because of this, there can be hundreds and thousands of slides with multiple fields which could be analyzed or picked up accurately. As a result of which, the need for the number of pathologists, it is not the pathologist per se, but the number of pathologists or cytologists comes to. And this is a beautiful reference compiled by Rosenthal. Again, Ackerman and Rosenthal, all of you people know. So this again is a system. You find that there is the obtain. I do not know the technicalities of it, but then you find if there is nothing very significant in this, there is no further review. Or if there is going to be some kind of subtlety or abnormality, there is a review by the cytopathologist, suspected for malignant cells, for example. And if it is negative, again it is done away with. But sometimes it requires a system for a final diagnosis. So here what happens? There is a slide which is being picked up by the system. And then there is an accuracy regarding the nuclear cytoplasmic ratio, the bend of the nuclear margins, the hyperchromaticity, so on and so forth. See, so many of them, and they are all being picked up and analyzed. The principle of it. The PAPNET utilizes both algorithmic as well as the neural network computer technology. Algorithmic is somewhat a kind of a direction that you people trace, as a result of which you are able to go from one station to the other, ultimately the final. The routine computer requires step-by-step description to distinguish one element from another. All these are being fed by ourselves. And then there is a robotic arm which takes over from us and delivers the material. There is a preloaded slide. The slide is taken, it is from the cassette holder, it is placed, it is analyzed, and you find that there are the ultimate findings. The procedure. The slides are scanned under the low power to locate the diagnostic material. Then under the high power, just like what you and I do. There is a high color, full video camera that records and passes on the material to this algorithmic classification. Nuclei, nucleoli, other important factors. And the percentage of suspicious cells are picked up. And the neural network is brought into action for the analysis. There can be 100 slide cartridge that can be inserted into a station. At a time, you find hundreds of these slides can be reviewed and analyzed by this neural network. In 10 seconds, the cytologist, on the contrary, after all this analysis is over, he will be able to confirm whether it is malignant or not, because everything is being focused as such. Now, what are the uses and the quality control? The uses are one for the cervical samples. Initially, I thought it was only for the cervical samples, but then it could be used for a bronchial brush or from esophageal cytology, as in the slide that I had mentioned. Probably any fluid cytology can be used following this particular method. Quality control. The entire work group is controlled by means of the quality control software. And this, I do not know much. There is a grid, something like a Newbar chamber, as a result of which you find that from one square to another, they are all being analyzed very sequentially so that nothing is being missed. And finally, there is a cytologist seeing each slide that has been verified subject to malignancy. There are certain advantages. Standardization is there because you are the person who is feeding into it. There is increased awareness, again, a post-biopsy wisdom. Even the paucicellular areas or the edges can be scanned. Obviously, it is too much time saving. The disadvantages obviously are we are digging our own grave. We are feeding the material, and then, as I told you earlier, it is subject to a series of analysis. It is able to remember things better, and then it picks up when the same mistake passes through it again. In fact, this finds fault with you. When I miss something, it is a machine that finds out that I am wrong and gives it to you for a second opinion. The pathologist can be replaced or minimized. So this is one. Obviously, we are still safe because we are able to use a smear or a slide in context with the clinical history and the condition of the patient and the other findings, which is not yet fed and analyzed by the computer. May that day come, we can close the department of pathology. So this is the data processing, and you find that they are all being segregated and then they are classified, whatever it is. The various features such as the nucleus, the cytoplasm, etc. are being studied. And ultimately you find, I do not know these terminologies as such, the data is being processed and fed into the system. So this is probably a series of slides that are being subject to study. And this is again a wonderful reference from which the previous picture had been picked up, and they are from China as such. Maybe a day will come when the pathologist will be like this. I didn't even realize that it was a disease. At last a cure. And the clinician claims he has cured a condition, whereas we would have felt that nothing has been wrong with it. This becomes an unused ability, like unused muscles which will atrophy. God alone knows from where these people pick up pathological terms for a code. Thank you. See you in the next class.